Welcome back. We're discussing access to justice for women and children with my guests, Minister Michael Masutha and Detective Joyce Buthelezi. Now, sex workers are often treated as criminals, and, you know, that's part of the problem when it comes to dealing with women and crime against them. But I want you to listen to this soundbite when it comes to domestic violence and how that's been treated at the moment.
As a young girl, I was molested by a man in our community. He used to tell me, we are going to play house, and he would take off my clothes and my underwear and play with my private parts.
And that's obviously very disturbing, and what we found, I mean, there were many of those sort of clips dealing with family and people close to you. Why is that so bad?
Well, it's a betrayal of a position of trust, a position of responsibility over the well-being of somebody else. And I think it is a lot more heinous than when it's perpetrated by a stranger, because of the betrayal especially that's involved. So I think that we need to reflect on what happens in our family lives, look at whether we are taking sufficient measures within our communities to ensure that we break the silence where there is abuse within the family.
Okay, can we bring in Sello, who's on the line from Pretoria? Thanks for calling in, Sello. What's your question?
All right, ma'am. My question goes to the minister. Minister, what is the department doing to support women who find themselves trapped in abusive relationship, but because of the economical or the financial support that they tend to lose, they find themselves entrapped into those relationships? What is your department doing to support women in that stigma? Thank you.
Yes. First of all, that is especially a challenge where women would be afraid to report cases because they're afraid that the person is a breadwinner, or they're financially or economically dependent on them. If they're sent to jail, who is going to support them? Let me indicate firstly that part of what can be done, the orders that the court can make when it comes to domestic or family-based violence, is that an order can be issued where the perpetrator, usually a male, is actually removed from the home, and so that the woman continues to stay in the home, and a protection order is issued such that the man is not allowed to come within the vicinity of the home.
And it's effective?
And of course, in addition, where there is a relationship of support, where there is a legal obligation to support, that through the maintenance courts can be granted such that there is an enforcement of the obligation to continue to provide for the woman, if in this case she's the victim and she's in need of support,
and
whilst
do
the
victims,
man is outside of the house.
Okay, do victims trust that process? I mean, do they feel that the police have their back there?
You know, the domestic violence one is the most challenging one, because you must know it's two people now that, especially, let me just make an example, in a husband and a wife. Two families are involved. In that sense that you'll find that the woman has taken initiative to come and open the case. The case is being investigated. You know, the investigation is having steps of opening the case, arresting. Where we normally found and experience a problem, immediately after you arrest the perpetrator, that's when now the woman will change the tune. That's when now the families from both sides sometimes, the family from the woman, the family from the man, they will come together, have their meetings without you, an investigator, being involved, and then they come up with the stories now to say, no, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, the family has spoken, and then even the victim is understanding, then you find the victim saying, I want to withdraw this case. Not necessarily because there is this shortage of finances and stuff. There is a tendency that once the families are coming together, convincing the victim, the victim changed the shoe, and then you are left alone.
So many psychological issues here, and the fear factor. Can we just bring in Jane on the line from Mpumalanga? Go ahead, Jane.
I just want to say, when it comes to the justice system and the whole policing system, with my story, I feel I had to find renewed strength. As the justice system, police system is very true and has no feelings, basically. I dealt with delays, and finally to get a conviction for me was a miracle. My case was at some point struck off the roll, and I couldn't understand, and I had to work hard to get the case back in the court system. I just want to know if the Minister of Justice and the ladies representing our policing system, if they are aware of the challenges that we go through women in order for us to just get a conviction. In the end, you fight so much, and really you are already bruised, battered, and there's nothing left. But in the justice system itself, you must fight for your case to be heard.
Thank you very much. Do you think this is a police problem? Is it a justice problem? What goes wrong here from that point where somebody says, this has happened to me?
I don't know, Minister.
Yeah, no. Look, the very reason why we established special sexual offences court was in acknowledgement that the justice system did need to be jacked up so that there is enhanced efficiency, specifically when you deal with this kind of cases, because of the many complexities associated with it. This has resulted in prosecutors being specially trained, magistrates in those courts being specially trained, intermediaries in some instances, for example, where children are involved, who are specially trained to ensure that they support the child who has to testify, and obviously with all the vulnerability that pertains to a child witness.
Okay.
So there are a number of special measures that have been put in place to fast track, and I must say that the results are beginning to show. The conviction rate about 2 decades ago was below 50%. It's now at generally in sexual offences courts, sexual offences matters at 72%, special sexual offences court at 74%. So there has been significant
quite a dramatic difference there. Now, violence in the LGBT community is rife in South Africa, especially in rural areas, and this woman explains how some men view her sexuality.
I am bisexual. A lot of women have died at the hands of men who feel they could fix them, and there is nothing to fix about me.
Corrective rape, does that ever work?
It is a challenge, and as much as it is not reported, that is another case. Those are some cases that are not yet reported the way we would love to see them being reported. There's too much shame to those victims where an incident took place because somebody was correcting something.
Because they might be hiding something in the first place.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
That is where we will love to see these people to understand also. We will never judge anybody who comes forward to this SAPS to say, I am so and so, this is my sexuality, I was raped because of this, because at the end of the day, the person that perpetrated that was a rapist, and he needs to be removed.
I should imagine that in your job, I mean, you must, I guess, sometimes find it hard to sleep at night. You must want to scream and shout, and you can't believe how many people are so abusive.
The thing is, you must want to do it. If you don't want to do it, you must ask yourself, who's going to do it? We are doing it for our nation. We are doing it for our people. We are doing it because it can happen to me also. To be a cop does not mean that I can never be violated sexually or in any how. So doing it, you get used to say, this is what needs to be done by nobody else but myself.
Okay. Julian from Centurion is on the line. Go ahead, Julian.
I'd just like to ask the Minister a question, please, and the lady from SAPS. They said that the rape victims should report their cases in 72 hours. But in that 72 hours, sometimes with the evidence that the police or whoever collects, some of the evidence go missing, which discourages the victims from opening rape cases. What are they doing about it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. As I've already said, 72 hours, strictly, it means two things. Evidence to be collected, because we must all know that our crime scene, our victim of rape is our crime scene. That is there. But now we must also understand that it is not only the evidence that we are saying we have to prove our case of rape. This is the person that has been raped today. After being, raped, he talked about this thing to somebody else. He spoke about, there's something that people have been saying, that if I am not going to be able to get me tested or examined, then I've got nothing. There's a lot of evidence. Police are doing everything to get every evidence that can prove that this woman was sexually violated.
And obviously that evidence mustn't be lost. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you both, Justice Minister Michael Masutha and Detective Joyce Buthelezi. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, sex workers are treated as criminals too, yet they are often the victims of violence and are exposed to serious health risks. Tonight, should we protect those who sell sex? That's next.